Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a little 5 game slate here for NBA on DraftKings. Let's go and get into the injury report. Today we have Grizzlies with Bane doubtful and Jackson Jr. probable. For the Pelicans, Zion is questionable. For the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard is out. For the Knicks, Robinson remains out. For the Spurs, Collins remains out, and Trey Jones is questionable. For the Blazers, Nurkic and Winslow are both questionable. For the Nets, Kyrie is out. Claxton, Simmons are both questionable, and Curry is probable. So not as many injuries as we've been having a lot of days. So let's go and get into the players we do like today. So we're going to start with Edmund Sumner for Brooklyn. If he starts again, then he will be a viable option on the slate. His minutes are not super high, but he's been pretty consistent at getting around 15, 20 fantasy points when he starts with Kyrie out. So I expect him to be able to do that again. Then we'll look at John Morant for Memphis. He should be back today, even though Memphis played yesterday. He didn't, so he should be nice and fresh for this game. He's been really good lately, and especially the last 3 games. So I think he's a pretty decent play on this very small slate. Probably my favorite expensive guy on the slate as well. Trey Jones, he is questionable, but if he does play, he will have some nice upside because his price has come down quite a bit, and I do like him on this one if he does because of that. Jalen Brunson also looks like a pretty good play today. His price has come down some, and he's been pretty consistent to getting around over 30 fantasy points at the very least in most games. He's had a couple off games, but he has some big upside as well. And while the minutes fluctuate for the Knicks like crazy, he's been one of the few players, him and Randall, have been pretty consistent. Royce O'Neal here for Brooklyn. Now, it would help him if Simmons is out, so we will have to wait and see on that. But if Simmons plays, he would be hurt a little bit. But overall, he's still getting a ton of minutes, so that does give him some upside. He just needs Simmons to be out so he gets more shot attempts and things. Then we'll look at Jordan Clarkson for Utah here. He's got some good upside at this price point. He's been pretty good and consistent scoring wise lately. He's only had, I think, 1 or 2 bad games in the last like 10, and so I look for him to have a pretty solid game here against the Knicks, who are not great defensively this year. Then we'll look at Colin Sexton for Utah. He's been coming off the bench, and so that caps his minutes a little bit, but he's been extremely good, and his price point has come down, so I do like him here. Just note that this game between Utah and the Knicks is one of the highest scoring Vegas games on the slate, so do keep that in mind. Seems like it's going to be a pretty good game to get players from. Then we'll look at Dylan Brooks here for Memphis. As long as Bane is out, he's going to get more shot attempts. Yesterday, he didn't really shoot the ball well, so that kind of hurt him a little bit. But he nearly 5x at the price point he is today. His price did pop up today, unfortunately, but overall, he's still a pretty good play on the slate. Then we'll look at Jared Vanderbilt here for Utah. Now, he's in an interesting spot here with his price point being a little bit lowered, and he has been pretty inconsistent this season, but he has a nice upside matchup here against the Knicks where he should be able to do well. Then we're going to look at Harrison Barnes for the Kings. Now, Harrison isn't a tough matchup here, but he's been kind of low-key under the radar. They have a logjam in the forward position, but he's been playing a lot of minutes for the most part. He's a little bit sporadic on minutes, but he's been playing a lot, and he has been shooting the ball pretty well, so that's helped him. He's had a couple of really bad games, but overall his price point is also pretty decent on this particular slate. Then we'll look at Kevin Durant here for Brooklyn. As long as Kyrie's out, he's going to continue to have big games. He hasn't had any terrible games while Kyrie's been out. Obviously, when Simmons plays, that hurts him a little bit, but he's been shooting the ball pretty well for the most part, and I expect him to have another big game here against Sacramento, which is a nice little high-paced game. Then we'll look at Julius Randle for the Knicks. So he's in a good spot. He's been really good with Mitchell Robinson out, been pretty consistent scoring wise, and so I do like him here on this one slate. Then we'll look at Portland's center, uh, Eubanks. Now he's very consistent. He's very dependent on whether Nurkic is out or not, so do keep that in mind. If Nurkic is out, then he's somebody that's definitely in play today. Then we're going to look at Nicholas Claxton. Now, Claxton is also questionable, but I think he will likely play. And he's been pretty good with the exception of the last game, where he didn't play very many minutes because he got hurt. So we'll have to check and see on him, but he is somebody that looks pretty decent on the slate. Then we'll look at Olenek for Utah. Again, the Utah game seems like it's going to be the highest scoring game on the slate. And he's been pretty consistent at getting over 20 fantasy points this season. He does have some big time upside occasionally, especially when he hits threes and stuff. So he is an interesting play on the slate, but he is a little bit risky just because he really doesn't average above his salary. But again, he does have upside. And then we're going to look at Bassey for the Spurs. Now, he's not playing a big chunk of minutes, obviously, but he's been able to 5x almost in every game so far this season. Obviously, his price point has come up some, but it's still kind of viable. So it's also a little bit easier matchup than he's had the last couple games. But at some point, he's going to have like a 5-point fantasy point game, I think, just because of the limited minutes. Isaiah Hartenstein, now he is very dependent on if he starts or not. If he starts, he's somebody that you got to consider, but if he doesn't start, then he isn't. His price point has come back down a little bit from it being super hyped up. But it is matchup dependent on whether he starts or not. I do feel like he's going to start in this game since Utah has more big guys. So we'll just have to wait and see what they plan to do. But overall, he's a pretty decent play on the slate if he starts. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.